So we're gonna do a special session after all?
Wrong.
July.
Yeah.
I just heard that today.
Wrong.
You just announced it, yeah. For 5 days, legislative special session.
To look over. Yeah, suggested there.
Oh, for the copies.
Yeah. Between the story. Two o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just do a quick roll call for the record. Mayor Pro Tem Howe,
Here.
Councilor Crane,
Here.
Councilor Weeks.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay is present. At this time, I would ask for a motion for the approval of this agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, planning session is underway. Our first item A is a discussion of changes in multi-family solid waste billings to comply with Solid Waste Ordinance. This is a follow-up, I believe, from the last session we had. We've dug in a little deeper, specifically Councilor Crane and Manager Weir. I think can shed some new light on this topic.
So basically what happened, if everyone remembers back to Christmas of 20, when the dumpsters got pulled out of the core area, there was never a rewrite of that ordinance done. The ordinance as it reads today indicates that every unit, residential unit in the village, whether it's a single family unit or an individual unit, a condo, is supposed to pay the trash availability fee. That fee was turned off for the condo units that had dumpsters when they got a dumpster, but there was no code change reflective of that change. So theoretically, we could turn all of that billing back on right away. Mayor Lindsay and Manager Weir and I had a meeting with one of the larger property managers in town, Mike Steely, that manages a large chunk, though not all, of the HOA association. And this is going to impact their books. They obviously knew that they stopped paying those bills, and it is a fairly substantial amount of money annualized for the Village of Angel Fire. So the one ask for them was that we give them plenty of public notice, that we give them 60 days to say, hey, we're turning these back on, that we do an outreach program, either in water bills or some other method, just to make them aware that, hey, this was changed, but it was never actually codified. Part of that process also, there's a discussion in what's the right answer for us to do with the dumpsters moving forward. I know Mr. Epler and Ben from Solid Waste did a tremendous job President's Day weekend and the spring break weeks, making sure that there was enough trash capacity in the core area. And I heard rave reviews from Mr. Seeley and others about, not having dumpsters overflowing. So we've got to develop a plan for the short and long term on rectifying the billing irregularities that we have with proper coding, deciding what to do with the dumpsters, and then long-term, what's the right answer for solid waste in the core area moving forward seasonally and year-round.
Manager Weir, do you have anything to add to that?
Mr. Mayor, not a lot to add other than it's been my experience when you deal with solid waste. Although we do want the solid waste facility to pay for itself, you also have to make solid waste as easy as possible for people to comply with it. I think part of this is a consideration of putting a enclosed drop-off station somewhere near the core area or in the core area. We've even considered moving this, that's on Halo Pines Terrace now, next to the police station, moving that to an indoor facility that's in the core area.
So I will just state that that is item B on this, and I think it's prudent that we just combine these items.
I mean, they are related.
They are related.
I was just gonna wait till item B to talk about the details of where, but I did want to mention that I think that the goal should be to make this as easy as possible, yet still be able to finance our solid waste department with that in mind. And I think like Councilor Crane said, I think that solid waste department did a great job on those last weekends of the year, the last week of spring break. We had almost no complaints, which is a change. So we did a good job. It wasn't, I mean, basically financially, it wasn't free. We had to pay people to do that job. But I think that's what we should be doing.
Of course.
And I think the right thing to do is to go back to the billing like we would, starting July 1, the proper billing as per the ordinance. And I think we should even consider leaving the containers that are there, maybe without charge, since they are paying their unit rates. And the village net's gonna make more money that way. We should leave them there until we can get this new facility up, at least during the busy times. So if we wanna pull them back in the shoulder season, I don't know if we wanna do that. No, you're saying no. But during the busy times, we need to consider having those containers out there to make it easy on people, because otherwise they're not gonna comply.
Well,
That's just reality.
it's a capacity question. There's so much capacity at the transfer station, so much capacity at Halo Pines, and the dumpsters in the core area are more capacity for tourists to leave their trash. So I agree, until we have a more permanent solution, we don't want to limit our capacity going into any busy weekend. But I am all for going back and reinstituting the billing, because it's what the code says we're supposed to be doing. So if we're not going to do the per unit billing, we would have to modify the code to reflect that change.
And I think it's, we need to look at the dumpsters that are there, because right now, it's, you pay for a dumpster. Not all of the associations, not all of the condominiums and townhome complexes chose to pay that. It's not so much, from my understanding, that they don't want to pay it, is that they don't want a dumpster on their property because it just attracts trash.
Well, in some, there may be limited parking, but that's only a few.
So actually, it's more than you think. There's a good half dozen that wanted dumpsters, and we wouldn't put them on their property because we couldn't go, like the truck wouldn't make it back there, and there wasn't enough room in parking to pick up that dumpster, dump it in the truck, and have room for the truck to turn around if need be. So there are those. I don't know the exact number, but there's approximately a half a dozen that had requested them, and we actually said, no, you can't have a dumpster because there's nowhere to put it.
I think that those, if we had a better solution for them in the core area, their willingness or desire to have a dumpster on their property would drop off if there was a better solution. We don't have that right now. But I know from the property manager's perspective that the dumpsters do end up being trash magnets, and then if they get over full, not because, of anyone doing anything wrong, but somebody's coming down from the mountain, they see the dumpster that's easy to catch on Starlight condos, and boom, they're gonna use it. And I think if those dumpsters were to go away, we're just going to be piling that trash up out of town somewhere, either at Black Lake or northbound, depending upon which way the tourists are leaving. That, just because we don't see it doesn't mean the problem actually went away.
And the Halo Pines location is not a bad location, but it's not I mean, people who have been to Angel Fire learn and know about it, but if this is your first time here, you don't really know where it is, which is a whole nother issue. We need to get in our short-term rental ordinance requirements of notification of people, where to dump their solid waste and so on. But I think if we could, I think the real solution to this is to make it easy by having a drop-off facility that's enclosed somewhere in the core of town, replacing the one that we have here in Halo Pines. And we're gonna start charging or I hope we're gonna start charging the condo owners according to ordinance. And I just hate to pull those dumpsters without an alternative solution. And if they're gonna be paying more money than they're paying now, it's gonna be hard for many of them to swallow taking the hit on the price of a dumpster.
Yeah, I don't suggest that we pull them until we have a viable alternative. I'm not sure, I'm sure every HOA does, I'm sure has an annual budget. I know a lot of those budgets are compiled. Their fiscal years may start and stop at different times. I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to be a burden on these folks either. The way that the dumpsters left the core initially, I think was not handled well.
That was terrible.
Well, there's a few factors there. And the last thing we want to do is repeat something to that effect. But I do feel like that the condos generate, a lot of the solid waste that's produced in the village. So I was gonna ask,
And I think
Works Director, if he had anything to add to this discussion, but go ahead, Councilman.
With an enclosed building, that would be open certain hours of the day. It's not a 24/7 type
That's not my
operation,
proposal.
right?
Well, we're thinking about that, and we can,
We'll have to work through that, but it's not my proposal.
Mr. Eppler, did you have anything you'd like to add to this first topic?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor. Going back to what you mentioned about having the individual use fees and doing away with the rent a dumpster, no usage fees. One thing I want to make sure that's understood is that in that scenario, when somebody did get a dumpster for a condominium unit, they could choose the minimum of 2 days getting emptied per week. In realizing that the majority of those were empty on a Tuesday and empty on a Thursday, by the time weekend rolled around, they were essentially full. Because anybody who's been around the ski area a lot has noticed that Fridays are actually more busy in the ski area than Sundays. There's been a change in how people travel. They have more of a tendency to come in on Thursday night, ski Friday and Saturday, and then drive home, at regular time on Sunday. So what this has turned into is by Saturday morning, the dumpsters are already full. So for the next empty cycle to be Tuesday, that's a long stretch. Where Mr. Gully took the initiative to go ahead and even though there was just those 2 days specified, he just stayed on top of them to keep them empty. If we did go down the road of people still doing the monthly rental for a dumpster, I think we would want to either encourage or require people that during the busy times, they do a 3 day a week empty, that a 2 day is not an option. Okay, so that there would be a Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday empty.
I think, at least based on the math I've seen, there's obviously a break even depending upon the number of condos. But in most situations, the change from going to the per unit fee to the dumping fee was a pretty significant cost savings for the condo association, i.e. a loss of revenue for the village of Angel Fire. So I think the thought here is if we go back to following what the code says and turn all the individual use fees on, that we would be happy to work with you and the condo association to figure out, okay, what are the right days, what are the right number of dumps, but essentially, we would get them out of that. Now, whether or not we charge them for the dumpster on top of their individual use fees is a discussion, but we would essentially take their input out of when, where, and how often it got dumped. But the dumpster would be there as a convenience for them until such time as we can figure out a solution for item B, a better permanent solution for trash in the core area.
Well, I love the scenario because it's no longer a question of, should somebody be charged for extra empties, who's responsible for putting the trash there? It allows us to just go do the right thing and empty the dumpsters when they get full.
Right. I think that makes
There's nothing
sense.
hindering us.
Right.
And I think, we started with President's Weekend and to display that we could stay on top of these things without putting the burden on Mr. Gully to be billing for extra dumps, trying to track that, trying to manage it, having that discussion. And yeah, there was cost to the village, but it's cost we would have been encouraging whether we'd empty the dumpsters or not.
Right.
There were some scheduling changes, a little bit of overtime, but a deviation from what normal cost wasn't that great in the broad scheme of things.
It just feels like a better system. If we're not collecting enough revenue to pay for trash, then we need to adjust the individual use fees, not come up with a separate system of
Yes.
billing for dumpsters and how often, just address it on one end, not the other. And I think, I see no reason not to go back to that system. Remind me, Manager, is there anything in the code about how dumpsters are billed, or is that?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so if we were going
And I
to,
think that's in your packet too.
so if we were going to do this, we would need to leave the solid waste use fees as is, but modify the dumpster portion of the ordinance.
You certainly have that option, and it's not part of the ordinance. So the ordinance just says dumpsters will be billed for, the actual fees are in the resolution,
Got it.
which makes it much easier.
So we would just change the resolution to remove the.
And we
fees
have
for
to, we
dumpsters.
update the resolution every June
Okay.
anyhow. So it would be coming up for one of the June meetings. One of the things I will also add is that right now, I haven't looked at the budgets that are being proposed for solid waste yet, but the last few budgets have had room in them where we weren't short on revenue for solid waste. We had extra revenue for solid waste in the last few budgets.
I think policies for dumpsters and the associated charges need to stay in place because we need to keep in mind that it's not just condos that are getting dumpsters. We have businesses.
Right.
As well, so we still need to have, the pricing structure in place.
And I will say this, Mr. Mayor, I think part of the intent of removing the dumpsters from the core, even though I agree that it was not done well, I think part of the intent was valid. And there is a fairness quotient here that needs to be considered because we had dumpsters that nobody was paying for in the core at effectively commercial facilities, and we had other people paying for them, and I think that's what stemmed that. I wasn't involved, but my understanding secondhand is, people were saying, hey, I'm paying for my dumpster, how come they're not paying for theirs?
I will say though, that as far as the condo units are concerned, if we're gonna turn everybody back on to an individual unit fee, I don't feel like it's right then to charge them for that dumpster as well, if they choose to have one or are capable of having one in front of their units, where others are not, in the high density area. Now, as far as businesses are concerned, I think it's a temporary, and then we have to look at temporarily again until we can come up with a better solution. But what I don't want to do personally is charge them that fee and a dumpster fee on top that then anybody is legally able to use.
It's true, if they're paying for a dumpster, they have the right to lock it. They just have to provide us with the combination so we can unlock it and when we dump it.
It wouldn't change though, the commercial dumpsters, the dumpsters behind the restaurants, those would still be allowed. And I think not all, but a lot of those users do lock their commercial dumpsters. So we're really just addressing the residential multifamily side of this, from a change perspective. But I agree with Mayor Lindsay. They're gonna get a little bit of a windfall in the fact that for the last few years, they've been paying less in solid waste via the dumpster than the fees. And I think we're all interested in coming up with that short-term solution. So my recommendation would be to turn the fees back on with proper notification, communication, stop charging them for the dumpsters, but allow them to remain at just Repler's and
Well, I
discretion.
would consider the condos residential, not commercial.
Right.
Especially if you got a per unit.
Well, and they're, in the code, they're broken out that way. The residential service is single family and multifamily, commercials is different.
Same price.
Yeah.
That's just again, I want to be cautious how we proceed with this. I do see the problem. And I think there's a solution. Ultimately, more net revenue to the village. But again, I think it's something that we need to take a little bit of time with and prepare the associations for that. And quite frankly, seek more input from them if they're willing to offer it. But it is something I think that should be addressed with the new fiscal year.
And so, my perspective on this is we can take it to council for a vote if you want. I don't think it's required since the ordinance already, the mayor can direct me to become in compliance with the ordinance. But if you want, I can present it to council for a vote. That's up to you.
I think we should, if nothing else, just to get it on the agenda, to get the public's attention, and give them every opportunity.
Pickups per week out of that.
And then
We'll redo the resolution in June. It'll be totally
And
redone.
right now, Mr. Epler and Mr. Goley, as I stated, aren't really following the pickup schedule. They are, I think, in April, but when they see excess solid waste, they're doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yes,
The resolution also includes language, the high-density housing area, use of dumpsters within the core area, the high-density housing area or commercial dumpsters is prohibited. So that would have to come out of the resolution as well. Once again, what we're actually doing doesn't line up with the resolution of the code. So to your point, going back and enforcing the code is one thing, but I think it would be correct of us to rewrite the resolution to encourage a no-fee dumpster where it's possible, at the direction of the Solid Waste Public Works Department.
And of course, the pickup location isn't correct here either.
Right.
So,
Just a thought, I think we need to make sure that it's clarified to the community that, this is not going to open the door for a subdivision within the village to, as a group, say, hey, we're paying our use fee, we want a dumpster in our area too. Anybody who lived up here during the time where dumpsters were spread out throughout the whole entire village, will know that's a very bad scenario.
So we need to make the resolution core area only at the discretion of Public Works.
Or specified to multifamily dwelling units. Cause there have been people ask what it would take to get dumpsters over by Monty Verde Lake or up in the Aspens.
Yes.
See, so. Was there any further questions for me?
I'm sure there will be when we get onto the new building, but.
Does anybody else have anything to add at this time?
Nothing other than to commend Ben Gulf's people for keeping the Halo Pines so clean.
No, they have been doing a phenomenal job. The core, Halo Pines, they really have. And Mayor Pro Tem is exactly right. They've been doing a fantastic job. So with that, let's move on to item B, which was touched on briefly. Discussion of a new solid waste building. This item came about in discussions of item A, So we started the thought process of potentially having an enclosed building in or near the core at we have some potential sites identified. It's a little touchy. What we don't want to have is a big dump as the entrance into our core, but at the same time, we want to have something that is easy to find, completely indoors, and we felt like it could be manned during business hours and could easily be automated to accommodate people 24 hours a day. And just some thoughts along those lines is similar to like what we have at the car wash. It would be enclosed, but if you pull up, the door automatically opens, allows you in. It would obviously have a good camera system. So when it's not manned, you're still, it would greatly cut down, I think, on illegal dumping. I think people that are illegally dumping and don't know any better, if a manned facility is there, they can be directed to the transfer station.
Well, it was funny, I caught Mary Lindsay at the Halo Pines Trash Center when we were having part of this discussion. And as we were standing there, somebody was unloading a pickup bed full of a broken toilet, tile, shower enclosure, just filling up. That's 2 dumpsters with a remodel, which I'm sure you see all the time when you go to dump it. And you're like, oh, this is
dumpster to dumpster.
dumpster to dumpster until the truck's empty.
It's never gonna change, it's been going on for decades.
That's all.
But that's just it, and I will say that the Solid Waste Division has, money in their fund. Counselor would have to remind me on the exact amount.
It's about $1.5 million.
Manager, we're $1.5 million that needs to be spent inside that enterprise fund. Cannot be used towards salaries. It could be used for, correct me if I'm wrong, but equipment and facilities. Manager Goley had proposed an addition onto the transfer station that would serve as housing, equipment, a place where they could work outside of the public area inside the transfer station, as a use of that monies, which is a viable option. But when we noticed we had the money and we have this problem, we started looking at other options. And I'll have you back up, Kurt, if that's okay. I'd like to, I don't know if you've discussed this any further with Manager Goley, to see what his initial reaction to the thoughts are.
Well, the concept had been discussed with prior administrations as well, the scenario of having a closed transfer facility. What it appears to me, one of the challenges is trying to design a facility that accommodates our current methods. And I'll explain further. The scenario of having an enclosed building with just dumpsters inside, for instance, is going to require about a 16-foot ceiling for clearance for the truck to empty the dumpster, so forth and so on. And that, one, I think, led to the opinion that it was going to be a building that would be unappealing visually. It's going to be a high ceiling building, and various challenges there. I think, in looking into other design opportunities out there, essentially having a compaction station within a building that doesn't require truck emptying dumpsters can have a lower profile building. Once the compactor fills the trailer, you hook up onto the trailer and take it. Very efficient. Downside to that is that's very difficult to have a 24-hour a day operation, because that's not something you would want to leave unmanned. So there's different challenges from every direction. One, I think, there needs to be openness to possibly changing the methods of taking care of this disposed waste as far as getting it into the truck, its final destination before it goes to the landfill. But also understanding that if we want to utilize the same method to make it a 24-hour-a-day opportunity, that there's going to be challenges associated with that as well.
So question on that, I can't remember what it was, but I have been somewhere where there was a compaction trailer that you did load yourself, and there was a switch to run the compactor. In other words, it was still self-serve. Is that going to be difficult to do? Is that?
I know it's something that is available and possible. The question comes down to how much liability are we assuming?
Right.
What's the risk involved? And that is, and speaking with Manager Weir, we'd really like to talk to somebody who's in the business.
Got it.
And familiar with that. And there are examples of such places being available to the public. One that we discussed was it's a scenario where you have these compaction units located around an area, but there's a guy that simply his job is to go around these and activate them. Is it to say that even if we go that route, when we know it's peak times of the year and we want to have it open 24 hours a day during those times where it might warrant having a graveyard shift, if you will? Again, that's another expense. I personally would like to take this with the approach of, instead of figuring out reasons why we can't do it, just really looking into ways we can.
Well, there's obviously tremendous handling savings, right? If you're not dumping individual dumpsters and conglomerating them to a different trailer. If it's full, get the truck and drag it to Wagon Mound, you've saved a lot of steps in theory.
Absolutely. And that could offset the cost of added staff if needed. Essentially, I think the perfect scenario would be the trailer that the material is packed into is the trailer that's going to be hauled to Wagon Mound.
And I know we keep saying 24 hours, and I guess, is there a fallback to do 18-hour or something? Because I think what we're worried about is if we're not open fairly early on Sunday, to your point earlier, we have a lot of people hauling, 10, 12, 18 hours out here. They're leaving, dawn time Sunday morning. So I don't know that 1 o'clock in the morning is going to be particularly busy for dumping trash, but I can see 5 or 6 a.m. being busy.
And logical than trying to man 3 shifts throughout a day. I don't see anybody driving around 1 a.m. looking for a dumpster.
Not unless they're trying to get pulled over.
Yeah, I'm not even out at 1 a.m. very often. The bears are out.
Yeah.
So I think we would be, from what I can understand, in agreement of pursuing more information on this type of facility, other communities that have facilities similar to this, how they operate, the liability factor, and so on and so forth. So then the next question would be, if we were to start pursuing this, where do you feel, what's your analysis on the location, the right location?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to make sure the council is aware of something, because I think there's some misperceptions in the public. Because we have, I've had many people say, well, Plaza del Sol would be the logical place to put it, which is the area back here. And so in pulling that up and doing the investigation, thanks to my help from Santos Martinez, we discovered that even though Plaza del Sol, which you can see, well, actually, let me get back to here. Plaza del Sol, which you can see here on the TV, originally incorporated this area here. It really incorporated from this area right here, which basically is the fence line to CS Ranch. And it came all the way down originally to Bill Burgess. So it included all of this, basically this corridor here, all the way back to CS Ranch. But subsequent to this being donated by the resort to the village, This lot here, lot 1, which is quite frankly, to me, the most desirable lot for this, was reverted back to the resort. So the resort actually, what Santos told me is the resort actually owns lot 1 here. This lot 1 was also originally the primary location for the new fire department. It
Where's
wasn't,
the fire department now? Is it on there?
it's right here.
Okay. that's
It's
right.
not on here, but it's right here,
there. Okay.
right on this side of this easement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's physically, literally right here on this. So the fire department's here. So with what Santos told me is that this lot reverted back to the resort. So that we'd have to go to the resort and get permission, or they'd have to redonate that lot, which they use now. I've seen them use it as an overflow to the black lot. During peak times, they actually have that lot's full. So this is,
And I can add that I have had a very brief discussion with the resort, and I can just say from that discussion that I don't think that would be an option.
so what that does is it leaves, this is the, right here where it says lot 8. This is basically the lot where we are right now in Village Hall. And this is the old transfer lot, lot 9. And we do still own that lot, and we own these lots back here that were originally platted for Plaza del Sol. And then again, the land all the way back here to the CS Ranch property, their fence line right here.
And then there's utilities in there somewhere, right?
So the utilities are in this area right here designated for Plaza del Sol. This is where the utilities are within this area here. Now, at one point, this was back in 2019, the fire chief, the person that was chief then, thought about putting a fire station here on lot 4. So I don't know if that, since I haven't had a chance to talk with the chief since I learned this from Santos, to learn that lot 1's not available. If that's where they would want to go, I have commented, and I recommended lot A. There are some challenges with that lot that you'll need to ask the chief about. I'm not acutely aware of exactly what those challenges are. But there was a reason that Chief Britnell did not want to utilize this lot for the fire station. So if he wants to go to one of these available lots for the fire station, lot A would be opened. Quite frankly, I would prefer it to be closer to the core, but it would be, one of the things we can do is look at open lots that are in the core. And do we acquire one of those lots?
Figure out how much land we actually need.
Well, and I think that given that thought, I can already tell we're gonna have pushback by neighbors inside the core.
I would agree with that.
Well, and the other is like the traffic flow, you want
That's
to
the
try
other
to.
thing you direct. It's a congested area. So I mean, depending where, now maybe lower, near one of the resort parking lots, because those are sectioned out and some privately owned parcels within those parking lots. But yeah, I would hesitate to entertain putting it in and amongst a vacant area, amongst the current condo, high density area.
Is there anything on South Angel Fire?
There is, but I will say that the terrain on either side of South Angel Fire is not conducive to business.
Yeah. And Marsh.
Marsh, and it's straight up on one side and straight down on the other. So I don't see that as a viable option. I will say in my brief discussion with the resort, they obviously did not commit to anything, but would entertain possibly working with us on land, but they would want it to get further out, and I don't think that that's an option either.
Because we already have that.
Well, they were discussing highway frontage, but more towards their facilities, Flamingo Road area. And again, that was just a discussion, there's been no decisions or official offers made. From a solid waste standpoint, is there a preference for Ben and his team?
Well, not really. Again, it's a matter of what method is gonna be used.
Yeah.
Okay, what method we need to accommodate. I will say that, you know, for some reasons, to answer your question, where I would think it would go good, the lot just to the south here, it makes good sense, but whether it's there or over next to Flamingo Road, anywhere we're looking at a scenario of doing it off of Highway 434, it's probably going to involve accommodating a deceleration and acceleration lane. So just simply building an entrance off of 434 may not be an option. Okay, it may be required by the state to put in excel and decel lane, which could be pretty significant with this location because it would shrink the footprint of the lot to accommodate that, because there's not enough right of way to accommodate an excel and decel lane.
I think part of where we're gonna be is, if we can get to the compaction system, there's a lot of ifs there, right? But if we can, what size of building is even gonna make sense to have 1 or 2 or 3? So that's gonna dictate, because it'll drive the thin size of the land that it could get sourced on, so.
Right, maybe a hybrid model, and they have action with dumpsters for off time. I don't think 16 foot's a deal breaker, but again, more low profile.
Yeah.
I think for this facility, the better.
It is important to reduce traffic flow to try to prevent more congestion.
Chester.
And I think I'm stating the obvious and saying that whatever we do, the closer we get, well, in really anywhere we put it, it's gotta be easy to find, but also pleasing to the eye.
Right.
Okay, well, I think based on this, I think I would like to see the solid waste department, look further into the facility and what would make sense for us, and just get a better understanding of what it would take, and we can start putting numbers and possibly location to it.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would also ask to make sure that the solid waste department works with the fire department in their search for a new building location, to make sure that that we each know, we know what each other's doing, and we don't pick the same lot for 2 buildings.
We'll put them right next to each other.
Well, when I thought we owned lot 1, the solid waste facility right behind it, so it'd be kind of somewhat out of view, but then on Fuego Road, you could just pull right into it and maybe put another exit, onto Bill Burgess at the other end, at the east end of the lot. But we don't have that lot, so that's not an option.
It seems like you could almost come in the backside of this lot too, through Plaza del Sol, and get on this lot.
But it would be
The
coming off-
backside,
it would be
if it's
coming off-
beneficial.
It would be coming up 434.
Yeah, coming in from this side into that lot.
If you would please just come to the podium and state your name.
Christine Rowe, I'm a former planning and zoning person for the village. And lot 9, tract A, is the only piece of property the village can sell. The rest of the lots cannot be sold. So, part of why I bring that up is if the village needed to come up with some money and wanted to sell something, that is the only lot they could sell. And that was part of the reason why they ended up taking the dumpsters off of there.
So are we currently on the lot just north? So we're on lot eight.
Or a lot eight.
Yeah, so lot 9 was the only lot that the village could sell, and so that was part of the reason why they took the dumpsters off and cleaned it up, to try to make it look a little more presentable. Was at one point they did think about selling that lot.
So I will say too, that in my discussion with the resort, they weren't close to anything. And I think something to that effect they may be open to, but I would be cautious. And I think it would be best if we had a fire station to block the building if it was on elevation. But at the same time, what does that do to the visibility of the, obviously signage would be key.
Signage. Well, if it's enclosed, we're gonna need signage anyhow, because not everybody's gonna know, especially if we put up some building that's aesthetically pleasing. People aren't gonna look at that and go, hopefully, or, oh, there's the trash dump, you know. It's gonna be a good looking building, so signage is gonna be the key to getting people there.
So I think to your point, getting with the fire department and possibly putting something and a plan together, and then there could be a land swap scenario. Again, they're definitely open to discussion, but the initial reaction was the idea of having a trash dump prominent in the core is not ideal to them.
It's the challenge of competing ideals, because the further away it goes, the less easy it is trash, but I understand the aesthetic part of not wanting to make the core look cluttered, but.
And the goal obviously would be to get rid of all the dumpsters in the core, other than those for businesses,
Commercial use, yeah.
commercial use.
And still keep these other dumpsters or just get rid of that completely?
So I'm glad you brought that point up, because I think we would get rid of those completely. I think we would want the new facility to handle everything that does currently plus. And we feel like that would be an easy solution to Lieutenant Strickland's problem of not having an impound yard.
Oh, yeah.
In the few instances that they need one, they don't have a facility, and the fact that it's right next to the police station, it's already fenced. It could solve that problem. So it wouldn't be a waste of village funds that have been spent on that location.
So, Mr. Mayor, we would also want the comprehensive planning committee to monitor what staff's coming up with before they take off on a plan and they're not aware.
That's a good point. Yes, so all of this will funnel back to the comprehensive plan committee. Okay, any other discussion on item B? All right, moving on to item C. Discussion of increase in port of PERA covered by the village bank fire. So this item made it onto the agenda because it has been a pretty consistent topic of discussion, specifically among our leadership in the fire department and the police department. And what we want to do is, number one, is to be able to recruit and retain quality employees. And we need to look at the benefits of increasing a portion of their PERA versus wages. What this overall plan looks like for the village and for the employees. So again, the goal is to be able to offer, is for recruitment and retainment of quality first responders. So with that said, I don't know if Lieutenant Strickland came just to hear what we have to say, or if you'd like to add anything to this conversation. I think it would be appropriate at this time if you want to just give your personal, not as Lieutenant Strickland, but as your experience in the village.
So I got here in March of last year. So everything I know is coming from state police and what I was provided or afforded through them, and then coming into this plan. In state police, I was paying about $300, give or take, a month towards my PERA plan. That's all we really see, right? That we know that we're gonna get retirement at the end of, for me, it was 25 years. So coming here, it's doubled, right? And so for
When you say
officers.
it's double, you're referring to the amount of money taken out of your check.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're.
Now, I am making a little more, well, not a whole lot more. I did get a pay cut coming here. My opportunity was to work in management, and that's where I wanted to go, so that's why I made the decision. But most officers coming in, they're not looking, they're looking at starting their career or finishing it, really, in this department. So you have officers that come in, and if we give them nice pay up front, that's what pulls them in, right? They're like, okay, I would like to join with Village Bank and Fire. When they start getting their checks, that's where the retention problem comes in, is, hey, we're getting a lot pulled out, like half our check is gone. In taxes, in Medicaid, in PERA, in healthcare, half our check's gone. And so that makes it difficult, because up here, rent or living up here, like one check a month at least goes to living. And so when half of that check is gone and then another half, they can afford living expenses, nothing else. And so that's why it's been difficult. Now, I hope to try and remedy some of that. I did hear today that state police is going up 14% across the board. So I'll verify that, but
We're referring to their raises.
yeah, their raises. And their PERA is already at, I guess, about 10%, 9%.
That's their contribution.
Their contribution is 9% of PERA.
So they contribute 9%. What are you currently contributing?
19 and a half, and it's gonna go to 21% this year.
Is that correct, manager?
I think it's 18 something now. It's going to 19 and a half, and it's gonna be 21 the following year.
Is that how, okay?
I think that's it.
So it's roughly double what the state police,
Yes,
as far as percentage wise.
right, and they're logged in at 9, we don't. And that's who we're recruiting.
Can you tell me what, so, I mean, forgive me, I'm not by any means fluent in PERA, but I understand there's different levels.
There are different levels.
We currently are at what you're paying into the Village Range are level 5,
Correct.
which is the highest level of retirement.
So what that means is, as far as my understanding, is level 4, which I believe is state police, that they pay 3% every year. So after 25 years at 3%, it's 75% of your check. We're at 3.5. For those starting out, they don't care. But 3.5% after 25 years, I think, is 86% of the paycheck, maybe 87. Yeah.
So it's the number of years of service times the percentage rate, not to exceed your highest, not to exceed well, depending upon which year you started, either the 3-year or 5-year average of your 3 or 5 highest paid consecutive years. So basically he's talking about 3.5%, and you multiply that times your years of service. And then that creates a percentage, and that's the percentage of your average for your 3-year high, or people who retire now are on 3 years. If you started prior to June 30th, 2013, you have a 3-year average. If you started after June 30th of 2013, it's a 5-year average.
And let me ask you, and please tell me if you feel uncomfortable or not prepared to talk about this at this time, but in terms of, so I understand that you're playing, but PERA is something that we're here to talk about. So tell me what, if the village were to contribute more, what would that mean to your take-home pay?
So right now I pay $650 to $700 every check.
Every check, and you're paid twice
Right, I
monthly.
pay twice. So if you, allowed us to pay from our 19%, I believe it, to say 10%, I would take home, or I would pay $350. So it'd be about $250, $300
Per check,
per check,
so a total of about $700 per month
correct?
that you would see in your
Yeah.
take-home pay.
Right.
And what would that cost, what's that cost mean to the village?
We would absorb that cost. The cost is gonna stay the same. There's no way to get away from the cost.
So that number that you're taking home now, the village, that liability is transferred to the village.
That's right.
And so with that, that's where we need to determine what makes sense for the village and for our first responders moving forward, if we want to look at wage increases for more take-home pay, or if we need to.
Right.
Because I don't feel like we can do both.
Okay.
Wage increases as well as
Right.
increasing our PERA contribution.
And I'm wondering if we wouldn't be able to do like a blend. So like instead of going, we pay, or the village pays 51% of the PERA contribution currently. If we went up to 60% and did the pay raise, instead of going all the way to 75 or 80, like we're required to do, I don't know, 25%, I think. The most that y'all could pay is 75%.
Right.
So, instead of going to 75, maybe do just a little bit on the PERA and a little bit on the pay raise. The only reason I say that is because if we're trying to recruit, which we are, I do need to get pay raises up.
That's, but then again, the new officer, especially the young officer,
PERA is not important.
they're looking at that pay
Right.
per hour.
And the manager brought up a great idea, which I think would maybe help with that, is maybe offsetting it. So when we start, we're at this current rate where we pay 20, or it'll be 21%, where we're paying 21, and then after so much time it steps, and then another step. So it kind of be like a longevity, hey, the longer you stay, a little
So that's
bit
the
better.
retainage portion of there's recruitment, which is the pay retainage. Give you an
Right.
incentive to continue on with
Correct.
that.
So it would be probably I think a good idea. I don't know what that time limit would look like. He mentioned 5 years. I was thinking maybe 3, like every 3-year increments. We can move that PERA closer to the 75. But, you know,
If I could, because this came to my attention more as it relates to fire, so I apologize if it
Sure.
doesn't all apply, but I think what drove some of this is there was a change in the legislative session recently in the spring. My understanding, it was directed to fire and EMT, and it was to let some of,
I could easily be wrong. I think it was just EMT, but I could be wrong.
okay. It was to let some of those, because rural areas were so desperate for EMTs,
yes,
it was to let some of them essentially double dip, to continue to go back to work for a small municipality
These
like
are
us.
people that have retired.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Likely in retirement. Because or previously, if you were retired and you came back to work, you had to forego your retirement check.
Correct.
So that has changed, I think, in the fact, but can you tell us if you have any knowledge of that affecting the police department?
I don't have any knowledge of police people.
Mr. Mayor, so it's not really double dipping.
Okay.
There are rules. There's 3 different methodologies at which you can come back. Some of them require you sit out for a while. Some of them limit how much money you can make when you come back. So without going into, I can get you the copy of the statute.
This is the new one.
The new one.
Okay.
But there are methodologies in which people can come back to work, but it's not full double dipping.
Sure. No, and I, if I misspoke, I apologize. I think the reason it came up is there was a desire to take advantage of the change in this state statute to recruit those specific individuals, but something about how their retirement was set up and our PERA contributions was gonna make that very difficult. It sounds like it doesn't apply necessarily to the
Well,
police.
but it applies to this discussion because to that point, if we can bring experienced firefighters and EMTs to our village that can hold on to their retirement, and then it's very attractive to come in and work a 48-hour shift.
Correct. To your point about finishing a career or something.
But they're more likely to do that in another rural community that doesn't take, because they're already retired, basically.
Right.
And I just spoke to a retired fireman not 30 minutes ago, which is interesting. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you consider coming to work for another village? He's like, no, not. And he said, it was, I like fighting fires. It was the people I was dealing with back there that just turned them off. But as far as PERA, that would be something he'd have to consider, right? Is getting rid of his retirement and coming back to work. He wouldn't do that.
Yeah. But I think on the fire side, EMS side, I think Jake's correct, and then there is a provision now, hopefully, for rural communities.
Correct.
But that doesn't affect you as an officer, but for this discussion, it directly affects recruitment and retention.
Yes.
So,
Well, but in theory, if the state made this change to make it easier for places like us to recruit EMTs, and if it's successful, maybe they would allow the same for officers, you know what I mean? If it's, because it's the same problem they're trying to solve, is we have empty spots in EMS all over the state. How do we plug those? We'll go find somebody that has the experience and retired and incentivize them to come back for a few years.
Right. And I didn't like the idea of double dipping that this all started from to begin with, because here's the thing, they worked their retirement.
I wouldn't consider double dipping.
And so.
Not negative note.
Get paid twice, but you retired, you've earned that retirement, and now you're choosing to go back.
Correct.
Right, you're not getting another retirement on top of it. You're just working, you're working a different.
The change was, if they went back to work, it did mess up part of their retirement, and whatever change happened.
Well, they couldn't come back to work
Correct.
without suspending their retirement.
Correct.
Prior to this change.
Prior to this change.
Prior to this change, and I think it's very restricted in who is eligible for it.
No, but again, however, our PERA contributions affect specifically our first responders, I just want to have that. I know it's a big topic of discussion amongst the police and fire department. And so I just want to make sure that this body understands that and can, especially going into budget season.
So what is our para match now versus the state police?
Well, so there's a couple of different ways to look at it. So right now, we pay 51%, the employee pays 49%.
Okay.
In state police, they pay 75% and the employee pays 25%. By the way, the county just adopted that same.
But that's also a different level. That's a level 4.
Well, yes.
The state police is,
Yes.
not the county.
The county's at level 5 as well.
I believe the county is in a level 5.
So all of this is in furtherance of helping recruit.
Unfortunately for the officer though, yes, he will get a better paycheck at the end, right? But
That is retirement.
that's retirement, and getting an officer in a small town to go 25 years.
Right.
So PERA is usually not a consideration. It is the pay, like we were talking about, that pulls.
And you see, and that has been a demographic here for especially the police force, is either young officers just starting or senior officers at toward the end of their career.
Right.
Finishing their.
And
So
I
that blended retirement doesn't affect them at all, really.
And I would add, Mr. Mayor, this is a problem regardless, like, it can be even a problem, even though for our non-police, the admin staff, we're on level 2, which takes less out of your check and you get less when you're retired, but it's still a significant amount that comes out of people's checks, even at a level 2. So is it level 5? I mean, I thought level 5 was part of the issue in the beginning until I started digging into it. And now, even if we were at level 4 or even level 3,
It's not a big significant savings.
it's not it's still a lot of money we're taking out of their paychecks, to be fair.
So we're gonna have to look at this across the departments, because the answer for police may be different than the answer for fire, may be different than EMS.
So typically, when you do it in PERA, you have to pick a percentage you're gonna pay.
Across the board.
It's across the board.
But obviously there's a different, for the police,
It's gonna benefit the police and fire more than it's gonna benefit admin financially.
But it's something we should look at across the board. And I think along our study that we're conducting, as far as wages and so
Wage
forth, this data will all come together, hopefully to have a better understanding of how to move forward on.
And, no, it's on the inside, Peter. No, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, we were talking about the wage study.
Yeah, so, oh, I know, once you make this election to go to a percentage, you can never go back.
So we're at level 5, we're staying at level 5.
No, it's not that. Right now, we're at 50. Once you make that increase, you can never go back.
So can you do it across, on an individual basis?
Don't,
Or
I'm
based
not
on-
sure.
based on
I
the
don't think
terms
so,
that-
but I'm not sure. That's not the way I've seen it done. That's not the way it was done at the county.
So in other words, back to the, how do you see that working then? If someone spends, there's a 5-year mark and they make that mark, we contribute more. We don't know for sure if that's even a possibility.
No, that's possible. If you want to have a step-up plan, you can develop a resolution that says, here's how you do it. It's just that, and say, after 5 years, it steps up. It's just, once you set that resolution in, you can never go
Reduce it.
backwards with anybody. You could make it, do another resolution, and instead of step 1 being 60%, you could make another resolution to make it 65. But you can never make it go back to
Whatever we choose
55.
make it, we can't revert.
That's right.
So do we feel like then the salary study is gonna capture this to give us a good look at it across
It's
departments?
not really the intent of the salary study. It's more, the salary study is to determine if our hourly wages are competitive in northern New Mexico.
Sure, but net out, I mean, the hourly is part of the equation with the PERA right now, the way it's set up.
We'll need to extrapolate that, but put it all together for what works best for our village.
I'll call Jill tomorrow, the lady doing it, and ask her to incorporate that in to the study. It's not in the definition of the study right now, PERA.
But that does make sense to me, first discussion, a step plan, I think warrants further discussion.
As I told Lieutenant Strickland, there's 2 sides that needs to be considered to the step plan. Is it does work for retention, but it also makes it harder to recruit, because if you're doing 3 years at your place, you're gonna come in paying 49% with the hopes of 3 years getting that reduced to 60 or whatever the numbers are. So coming in at 49%, whereas state police, they just said, we're paying 75% to everybody's. It makes this for a new recruit to be a little less competitive, but it does help us retain people longer. The other side of it is, what can we afford?
That's the big side. Do you have anything else to add, Lieutenant?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
So it's also, are there any other benefits such as reduced housing costs or whatever that we can take a look at?
We're gonna have to definitely, as we all know, that's the biggest challenge, even if you make the money finding a place. We have a lot of hurdles to address in recruitment more than anything.
Mr. Mayor, the other thing is, even though it's not on the agenda, that possibly we can consider is healthcare. Because right now we pay 80%. There are agencies that pay 85%. There's a few I've heard, I don't know who they are, but I've heard that there are a few that pay 100% of healthcare. So that's the other one that we could look at. That's a benefit enrichment, but it's gonna cost us the money.
It would help with their take-home pay, but it could be adjusted in the future if necessary.
And
PERA cannot.
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay. The goal being to get more money in their pocket every other week. So I want them to understand that we understand and we'll look for the best solution for them and the village as a whole. So is there any other, did you have anything else? Okay, with that, let's move on to item D. Discussion of an agreement with the Public Improvement District, Angel Fire Resort in Colfax County to write off fees for excessively delinquent lots. Mr. Borgeson, if you would, please.
My name is Don Borgeson. I'm vice chair of the PID. Our administrator, Christine Rowe, is also here. She could probably answer more questions than I could ever think of doing. I wanted to go kind of an overview real quick. PID was created in 2008 to bring utilities to about 800 some lots, 850 lots. Those utilities include road, water, municipal water, electricity, telephone, fiber optic, and in some cases sewer. The PID is a governmental entity. A lot of people don't understand that. And the PID was created by the Village of Angel Fire, and our board of directors is appointed by the Village of Angel Fire. The PID finally succeeded in an election was required of 850 property owners. 76% of those owners voted in favor of it. Not long after that, there were a series of lawsuits, 19 different lawsuits, and the PID and its existence and legitimacy went through the court system and has been affirmed by the state Supreme Court as of 2012. One of our biggest problems was caused before the PID was ever created, and it's a problem for the village as well. NRPI, a national real estate resale company, came in here in 2005. And between 2005 and 2007, they sold more than 1,000 lots, starting with Florida, then Arizona, then California, and then folks in the Midwest, Michigan, places like that. Before NRPI came in, the average sale price of a lot in Angel Fire is $24,000. By the time they left with their program, the average sale price of a lot inside Angel Fire was $69,000.
And can you tell me the dates that they arrived and the days they were done when they left? Roughly.
They flew them from Florida to Albuquerque, bought up in a bus.
NRPI, what
National Recreational Property.
what dates were they operating in Angel Fire?
From, I don't know, can't recall the exact dates, although I have that information.
I think
From 2005
2005 is when they started.
2007.
to 2007.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, you feel like they were directly responsible for accelerating lot prices.
They created a problem with the value of the lots.
So I think that they did, I don't know if it's a problem, because in 2007 it wasn't a problem, because if it was, they wouldn't have voted for the PID in 2008.
No, these were buyers,
Right, they willing buyers.
not owners.
I think probably what it is the percentage, there's a percentage of, in our people who bought lots from NRPI are probably delinquent.
Well, I understand that.
Is that kind of?
Well, did NRPI sell PID lots?
Yes,
They had lots inside the
that
PID,
was before, much of it was before the PID was created.
so they were unimproved lots.
Yes,
The
Then they
NRPI
got
was,
approved.
the NRPI was selling it.
the problem happens is that those people, really were not connected in a permanent sort of way at all. They were wildly speculative. They would,
As a lot of people were at that time in history.
yes, they were. But, when the PID came about, it created a difficulty for them, having paid $69,000 for that lot. So that's kind of a background deal.
Sure.
The PID, currently we have 208 delinquencies.
So I think you're skipping an important moment. Those lots were purchased, willingly purchased, and then 2008 happened.
Yes,
So in 2008, you could, but prior to that, you could finance a lot. You could finance really anything.
Yeah.
Stated income, so on and so forth.
Correct.
So a lot of these people were getting in on the real estate speculation, amateurs in many cases, and a lot of professionals got caught in it.
Yes.
But yeah, when 2008 happened, it was a perfect storm here in Angel Fire. Not only did the Utes come on in 2009, all these PID projects started in 2008, 2009. So here we are, and then a lot of the NRPI lots that were already developed outside the PID were being foreclosed on.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, we had a glut of land that was essentially worthless. Is that fair?
That's fair. And in the current market, the PID is kind of a handicap in many ways, because those fees, say in Village North, just above the lids, their annual assessment's probably $1,200-1,400 a year. If you were to pay them off all at once, just like paying off a loan early. The payoff would be around $14,000.
So just to, and I understand, I just want to make sure everybody else is clear that the PID financed the development of these lots
Yes,
for a period
with the help of the next, we've got 13 years left.
out of how many?
30. It was a total of 30
It was
years.
30-year.
Yeah.
Finance. And so with that, that's where these payments are coming from.
Yes. Our problem at the PID, as well as with Colfax County, and I presume with the village as well, is that a lot of these people just aren't paying. There are 45 who have never, ever paid from day one. Right now, we have about 208 delinquencies. The highest delinquency number for one lot in there is 129,000. The total delinquencies are 7.9 million. The PID itself put together a program to try and get a whole bunch of folks who are not paying. They've just stopped paying. They want to let it go, and then they discover they don't get to let it go. So the problem with the PID is that these people have stopped paying. I suspect they're also not paying the village an average of probably $250 a lot for water availability fees, fire protection fees, geo bond.
And so not only are they not paying that, they're not paying the PID, they're not paying their taxes.
Yep.
Their property taxes, and most likely the resort fees.
Correct.
Correct. And it took us a considerable amount of politics to get the state taxation and revenue department and some cooperation with Colfax County as well to get to a position where the PID could go to a tax sale, take those lots, and then the PID would not be responsible for the past due taxes, the past due resort membership. The resort was very cooperative in it, or anything that's owed to the village. It has allowed the PID to go to a tax sale, buy those lots, put them on the market, and most important of all, start getting them into people's hands who will pay those. Part of the requirement is the PID vacates all the past dues. So does the resort. And the village has waived those future dues. But,
The village future, not dues.
I'm sorry, fees. Yes, correct.
I understand what you're saying.
So
I just
that,
want to be
He
clear,
means
when
past.
and Don's well versed in all this, I just want to make sure anybody listening is not, that we understand what each agency involved, whether it's the county, the village, the resort.
and the taxation and revenue.
So in dues, I would refer to, that would be something referred to the resort.
Yes,
Yeah, our fees, yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to clarify for people that may not.
thank you, yeah. So the most recent, agreement between the village and the PID was signed in September of '22, and it carries on. It could be eliminated. It would require all parties to agree. So the parties who are involved are the PID, the resort, Colfax County, the Village of Fire, and the Taxation and Revenue Department. For quite some time, Tax and Rev, when they held their tax sales, would not include PID lots in the tax sale because it was too complicated. They have finally figured out our little program here benefits them as well.
So when they're going to the tax sale, who is setting the minimum?
If you'd like, I can answer a little bit more about the tax sale.
Because I know that at the tax sale previously on PID lots, if you were to go bid on a PID lot in the tax sale, the starting bid was typically their past PID payments missed, plus interest, plus
So the,
property taxes.
what it's supposed to be is any taxes past due, not the assessment. They're not supposed to include the assessment. They figured that out. But all penalties and interest on that assessment along with taxes.
So then so if someone were to buy that lot at the tax sale, then they are responsible then for the unpaid balance of the PID.
Yes.
And just as a note, in the last tax sale, there were 33 lots, PID lots in the tax sale. One person from Albuquerque bought 6 of them. Another person from Farmington bought 4 or 5 of them. They did not have a clue of what they were getting into.
Yeah.
So we're working with those kind of people too.
Yeah, so what, after that happened, that was October of '22. They realized that those people had no idea about the liens, not just the PID. They didn't know the village had the liens. They didn't know the resort had the liens.
Some of these even carry mortgages.
How did they transfer title without that information being disclosed?
The disclosure is if you did not research your property, do not make a bid on it
So this is why nobody's buying PID lots right now.
Right, at the county tax
at the
sale.
county tax.
Well,
Or other than
Or at the
uninformed
tax.
people.
or on the open market.
Right.
I
So-
can't remember you get a specific deed to that.
You get it, it's,
Basically a
if you
tax.
go and get do a quiet title, which means you have a judge sign off saying, yeah, it's yours, these people can't come back and get it. So if you buy a lot at the tax sale, it's a good idea to quiet title. The PID already knows what liens are on it. We're gonna waive our lien as far as past due. But we still wanna collect moving forward. And we want the village to collect moving forward. Because all that money you're not gonna ever get it. People aren't gonna buy these lots if there's still all these liens on them.
So you're just buying the lots, you're selling the lots for what you're getting them for,
Yes,
basically.
And what is that amount? What's that
it
amount?
varies, but
Well, we're actually selling those lots for $5,000. That covers all of the closing expenses. It covers the commission for real estate brokers to handle it because they are pretty remiss to take on a PID lot.
So you're selling these or buying them at $5,000?
We're
No,
buying
we're
it we're buying it from the tax sale at what, about $230 a piece?
average is probably about 200.
And that's just to cover administrative costs, I would imagine? That was what I was looking for. And then the PID is offering an extreme discount to get them in the hands of the producing owner.
Yes,
That's the goal.
that is the goal.
Now, PID lots can't be combined. There's some other restrictions associated with them.
No, there are no restrictions.
As long as it wasn't an
The NRPI lot.
It's still be combined.
Any combination can be done per state statute. It's whether the resort will recognize that combination. So if you own 2 NRPI lots and you want to combine them, you can.
What if you own a non-NRPI lot and want to combine it with an NRPI?
You
lot?
can.
So,
Now,
there's a
the
difference
misconception
between
is-
combining the lots
And quite
and
frankly,
combining your dues associated with the lots.
Correct.
So you can combine the lots, you just have to still continue to pay two
and
sets of
I
dues.
don't know
They're
that.
deed restricted.
Yeah,
Yeah, if there's a deed restriction, I think it's supposed to.
That's right.
Yeah. So that has nothing to do with whether it can be done or not. That's strictly a resort issue on whether it's on your dues, not on.
well, I just, and you know how the rumor mill is, but I had a neighbor who wanted to buy the NRPI lot behind it and was told you can't combine it. And
Which is incorrect. You
Right.
can't.
The dues don't go away.
Got it.
Just don't go away. So, we bought 6 lots at this last tax sale. And what the tax and revenue did was they said, okay, this lot's $23,000. They went through the tax sale. There were no bids on any of the pit lots, obvious reasons. So they had a second round. And in that second round, they said, we're gonna sell this lot for $2,300. If no one bid on it, they went down to $230. And that's when I bid on it.
But that, and I just want to be clear, that $230, it was also free and clear of all past due
Taxes.
taxes.
That's what the tax sale does, is cleans up
I know, but
taxes.
I just want to be clear though, what about past due PID payments owed?
Now that we're gonna own it, we're gonna waive our past due PID.
But if,
You're gonna waive it to yourself.
We're gonna waive it to
but
ourselves.
if I came and buy a PID lot, you're not gonna waive that fee.
So if you went to the tax sale and bought it for $230, you're gonna still owe that past due.
So those are never gonna sell at the tax sale to anyone but you.
That knows what to do.
Right.
And that's the point, because we knew that these lots would never sell. So we went to tax and rev and said, we gotta do something, you're not collecting taxes, we're not collecting PID, the resort's not getting their dues, the village aren't getting fees.
And also, since you're buying these at the tax sale, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you market them or resell them, or is there some sort of disclosure?
We have to get the deed before we can do anything.
Which, 2 years?
The folks that own these lots can come back. If they come back, they have to, so I bought the lot for $230, they have to pay me my $230 and any past liens on that lot. So no one's coming back for these lots. 2-year period is there, but no one's coming back for these lots. If you owe $60,000 to the PID and another 20 to the resort and another 10 to the village, you can't afford that, you're not coming back. So we can sell them right away, we don't have to do that waiting period.
So long-term then, is your goal to try to buy up all those lots, unencumber them, and sell them as,
As many as
As
we
many as
can
we
at a
can.
time,
how many?
in order to get them into performing ends. So, like I said in the opener, there's 208 delinquencies right now.
So you're long-term working yourself out of a job essentially.
Yeah.
We have to get these out of here. It's a hangover from 2007 that still carries on.
So a little more detail than, so it was $21 million. We are down to 6.3 million.
Then delinquencies,
No, that we owe NMFA.
Okay.
That's the principal now, 6.3 million.
and there's still 13 years left.
And there's still 14 years left.
But if you're only gonna collect $230 a lot,
But they're gonna pay their assessment moving forward.
13 more years.
13 more years of assessments.
So, yeah, so you buy, so I just want to, and again, buy a lot from you for $5,000, but there is an assessment attached to that.
Correct.
The remaining, not the back.
Correct.
That's understood. That makes sense.
So most of these lots are gonna end up, even they're gonna spend $5,000 on the lot, they're gonna owe another 15,000 in assessments if they prepaid it. Or they can pay, $2,500 over the next 14 years, whichever way they wanna do that. The PID will still get part of that 6.3 million that we need to pay off at the end.
And also to this, of all the entities you described that are affected by the PID, we're the least. the dollar volume.
because it's our fees that we
It's
have
just
to
our
write down. So essentially the discussion is that we continue waiving these fees on these.
I mean, I think, yes,
Yeah,
that's my feeling.
Right.
To see this program successful, because the goal is, and I think it will be fruitful in putting these in performing hands.
Just out of curiosity, in 13 years, if there's still $5 million owed, what happens?
That'll be up to whoever's sitting up here.
Well, the land is essentially worthless, the fees will have been paid, the loan is delinquent and it goes away, or what happens at that
The
point?
PID will never go away if it's not paid.
And the land, I don't think will ever be worthless.
Well,
But we don't wanna wait.
yeah,
We wanna get this moving now. This is something that I've only been with the PID for a couple of years now. The group before me was trying to get this agreement in place, and they did in 22. It took them 4 years, I believe, to get that done, to get everybody on board.
And most of these lots have water and sewer.
Water,
Well, not much.
Water.
they all have
They all
water,
have
they all have
water.
electricity, some of them got road work done. So
Some subdivisions have sewer.
Lift condos is in the PID. Because they got road work done.
There's a small portion of conscious trails. There's a few, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's some very strange things out there.
There are, and I do wanna take the opportunity, I know Don Borgeson has been working on this for years. And I know taxation, New Mexico taxation revenue was the biggest hurdle in making this happen, so I just wanna commend him for getting it done. I just was, forgive me, I don't wanna act like I'm grilling you, I just wanna make sure.
No,
There's a lot
I
of moving
understand.
parts to
There's
this
a
whole
lot,
thing.
it's a lot. I was with the
And for the
village when
layman
this
to try to
started.
understand, cause I mean,
It's crazy.
it is. There's a lot of
This was-
components.
somebody's good idea that there should not be around to ever.
No,
Well, it wasn't a bad idea, it was the timing.
Right.
The timing was a perfect storm. So,
Well, we're looking at sewer and Monty Murray, 1, 2, 3. I mean.
Yeah, but that's more the traditional, I'm guessing the PID was all to accelerate that.
yeah, so
And then-
there's things that you guys are gonna wanna consider. If you're gonna put sewer in Monteverde, you're probably not gonna wanna use a PID.
Oh,
well, but I would disagree. I
But
think it's an
there are
option.
other assessment
And when there's
options.
a structure on the property, that changes it entirely.
Yeah, you don't wanna lose your house.
Right. There's the bare lot. There's no asset.
It was wild speculation, it was, a real estate sign would go up, NRPI, you bought it from NRPI, you took their sign down, you put yours up, marked the lot up $20,000, and somebody else bought it, marked it up $20,000, and then it stopped.
I think NRPI did all the, they jumped them up, what, 4 times?
Well, that was Don's point, but
Yeah.
it was a perfect storm, that time in history.
Yes.
And they took their money and headed to the Caymans or whatever.
They went to San Antonio and they went bankrupt.
Like lots.
Horseshoe Bay,
Yeah.
which is wildly successful now, they took them out. So, as far as.
But if there's any, even if it has nothing to do with this discussion, if you guys ever have any questions about PID stuff,
There's gonna be a lot of questions, but as far as this discussion is concerned, again, our liability is the least of all the people involved, and we know that we need to be part of it for it to work.
Well, we're never gonna get any money until they get it in somebody's hands that
That's
is interested.
exactly
yes.
right.
And that's the point. Once they buy it from us, they know that they have fees to pay. There's things that have to get paid. The people that own it now, half of them didn't even understand that they owed the assessment, never mind the village, never mind the resort, or maybe they knew about the resort.
People that buy stuff today, they don't know that.
How many lots total you still
There
have?
are 389 lots that are still paying, that are still being billed an assessment. 203 of those are not paying.
Got it.
So.
And your annual goal of getting lots through your process now is?
10 to 15 is kind of the minimum we'd like to be turning around on an annual basis, but that's gonna depend on, what tax and revenue wants to do.
And I'm sure the absorption rate, but at your prices, even with the the assessments is,
They're still probably gonna average about $25,000 a lot.
And so Christina, I have a question, Mr. Mayor, if I may. So the agreement, the contract that was signed, back in 22, I think, in that agreement, the village agrees to write off all of our fees for properties that are purchased by the PID.
Yes,
Does that also include the resort?
Yes,
yes.
the resort doesn't write them off, they write themselves a check.
Well, no, I know on dues how they handle, I'm talking about village fees if the property is purchased by the resort.
can you state that again? I wanna.
So what he's saying is if the resort goes to the tax sale and buys a lot,
Which they're doing again now.
they didn't do it at this last one, but they have done them.
But I'm sorry,
So
they're
that
buying
would
it,
be, my understanding of this agreement is, it is the village can go and buy something and all of it would be waived. The resort can go and buy something and all of it will be waived. But you cannot make a profit without sharing it.
Okay.
So if we went and sold these lots for $25,000, you guys would get your 1,000, they'd get their 5,000, and we'd get the rest.
So let me just give you a scenario, a hypothetical. Say the village goes and buys a lot in Village North that might be zone multifamily. We could do that at an extremely administrative rate. We can pay the $230 basically. The only ones we'd competitively be bidding against would be the PID or the resort
Yes,
or
so here's the
the
thing,
county.
but you'd still have to pay
Future, the current for them
all,
forward,
right?
but again,
Will, would the resort work on, absorb their past dues?
no, they would.
Yeah,
It
That's
goes
what
away.
the agreement says.
The agreement
When you-
goes,
when you
now you'd have to
read
start paying from that day
So
forward.
just
So
so you
between
know,
those three
just so you know
entities.
how this happens with the resort, because of the bankruptcy, they have extra litigation to consider that we don't. So what they do is they don't actually write it off. They actually pay it off. But since the resort gets back 95% of what they pay in as dues, it's really only costing them 5%. And that 5% is going to AFPO, who then uses that for amenities.
Yeah, right.
So, even though there is a financial cost to them, it's not as
The
significant.
reason I bring it up, it could be a strategy for the workforce housing committee to have
So
in the
most
back
of
of their
most
mind.
of the PID lots are not multi.
Well, even if it was, so most, but there are some,
there's a few.
but even single family. Again, I'm not saying this is any plans, but then we could sell it, but not that we would be, the village isn't interested in buying and selling at a profit, it's buying if needed. Again, I think the premise would be for workforce.
If it adds housing units, it might be a strategy we could employ.
Yeah.
If there was some
And Brett and I
strategy.
talked about that a little bit.
Well, and I don't know where they all are, but I know there are a few. I think the multifamily lots would have far more interest for the village than a single family, so if those do start to come up, it would be worth looking at.
There's one other piece of this that you should just be aware of. It's actually not part of the contract. It's statutorily, any billings that we do for services fees, we have a 48-month statute of limitations. So once it gets 49 months old, we're required by statute to write it off. As a matter of fact, this village has had audit findings for not having written it off when it was older than 48 months. So what I'm seeing right now on these lots that are coming through, the legal amount that's owned to the village is usually between $3,500 and $4,000 if they've never paid anything on the lot. That's all we can bill.
I appreciate you both coming. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. Again, I wanna commend you both, but I know personally, I've been having these discussions with Don for 10 years. So I'm glad to see y'all are getting some movement.
Yes.
at 10 to 15 lots a year, you're gonna be out of a while.
Couple of months anyways.
Okay.
Job security.
That's right. Next on our discussion item agenda is, the discussion of making 15 miles per hour the standard speed limit on village roads. I think I'll just start with Public Works Director Kurt Epler. And let him explain the reasoning that this is on our discussion, today.
Well, there's really two reasons involved. One, it's common knowledge we have some washboard roads. It's also very easy to find data that states anytime speeds exceed 15 miles an hour. That's one of the main contributing factors to washboard. Given that we have, grades on roads, hills, curves, so forth and so on, that contributes to it. But really what made me want to bring it to light is the fact that the criteria to determine speed limits on rural roads is very clear based on line of sight, passing zone opportunities, line curves, blindness over hilltops, so forth and so on. And in following that criteria, it's evident that many of our roads up here should be at 15 miles per hour. I'm sorry I don't have this table for you. It is available in the village code book where it specifies these criteria and how speed limits are designed or specified, I'm sorry. And, those are the two main factors that, what came to my attention. One is obviously the looking for ways to minimize damage to the roads, see if we can get, and wanting to get all the roads in better shape, wanting to keep them in good shape. But also encountering this winter, particularly on El Camino Real is a real good example of where a 25 mile an hour speed limit is excessive in the summertime, where if that speed limit is allowed in the wintertime as well. Get a few calls from Lieutenant Strickland that we've got cars off the road.
I assume this would be meaning a standard speed limit, so not where it's posted now, but anywhere where there's not a posted speed limit would be, in other words, are you talking about 434 as well?
No, these would, and I think there are still a small number of roads that are fine with a 25 mile an hour speed limit, where line of sight is good, passing opportunities are good, but it's pretty small number in a pretty small area.
Is there any requirement to get state DOT input for this?
I don't know, sir. I would welcome it.
So obviously, this would be great, but right now, most people in the village, we have trouble getting them down from 50 miles an hour.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
To 30. We have a relatively small police force. We could move it to 15, but I don't know what it accomplished.
Well, it will come down to enforcement. It's pointless to have any changes, any speed limits, period.
Well,
If there's no enforcement.
yeah, and the washboard is strictly caused for people flying down the road.
Well, and then quite
Skip
frankly,
over the top of those things.
Yeah, right, at some point, but, I went and tested it out, and I don't know anybody who's probably gonna comply with 15, but, you may be a happy medium there at
right,
something.
well, right now, so if it's a 15, maybe we get everybody down to 25.
Yeah, exactly, that would be, yeah, exactly.
Quite frankly, it's not just the condition and the safety, but the dust alone.
Well, and I do want to add that, 15 mile an hour speed limit is not going to eliminate washboard. There's so many other factors, dryness of the material, so forth and so on, types of material, driving habits. Me personally, my biggest concern about the speed limits is safety. There are absolutely places where 25 miles an hour is too much for a regular vehicle. We have commercial vehicles, larger vehicles going even at the speed limit. Have a lot of experience myself, driven truck on every single one of these roads. And if you're driving 25, you're putting yourself and other people in danger.
Is the opposite then true of the side-by-sides? If you're coming down from El Camino in a 1,200-pound side-by-side, is 35 safe?
Oh, yeah.
If he's encountering a concrete truck doing 25, I would say no.
You're safer if you end up off the road,
Right.
side by side.
And I would like to, if Jeremy Strickland, Lieutenant Strickland's willing to discuss what that would mean for the police force. Because again, we can make the changes, we can pay for all new signage. It comes down to enforcement. And I, this is my layman opinion, but if there's a chance that you could get pulled over or get a ticket, and I know Lieutenant Strickland's extremely lenient because he pulled over my mom doing 60 and a 40 and let her go in the middle of a blizzard. Which I thought was, she deserved a ticket. But he was nice enough to let her go. No, I think just the presence, knowing that like, hey, slow it down. I mean, give them the lights, excessive, but at the same time, I mean, it's not uncommon to pass people in certain areas doing 50 miles an hour. That's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, it's almost to the point where you look at speed dips or speed humps, on the main thoroughfares.
Yeah, right.
Del Rey,
Kurt.
Camino Real.
We
And I
have-
hate those things.
We have plenty of speed.
Yeah, exactly.
When Kurt gets these roads in shape, right now, the potholes in the washboard.
Sorry,
are
Kurt, that was
keeping me under 50. He's gonna have these roads in better shape here in a couple of months. They've been in years, but it's only gonna encourage people to drive faster.
It does.
That's a good point.
It's a big worry. Any time in the past that we've seen work in areas, on discussion of the PID, some of the PID roads were improved and became primary routes. Amazing the speeds people were traveling on.
Yeah, I watched y'all do the, Winter Park Road. Y'all did that road last year and it just was perfect. And you would not believe how fast people were going down that road.
Is there anything, because I know one of the people who went off El Camino this last winter, there's a couple of curves, obviously, and it's usually on the downhill. You're carrying too much speed, you're going to turn, the road goes, and you continue on. Is there anything on those corners specifically where we do see them going off more frequently, that barriers or anything there that could be done either in lieu of or in addition to the speed limit changes?
Yeah, it's possible. Most of these roads were built, they were, built under the guidelines of the time. There are a lot of roads that we have right now that if they were being built today would require guardrail. So they would meet the criteria.
And the other factor, I guess, is there's lots for sale, right? Some of those, is there actual lots on those? Some of
The
those.
lines aren't
I don't know how
exactly.
you would.
Yeah.
But definitely.
I'm sure
definitely
Lieutenant
needed.
Strickland could give more input. I kind of have just from past experience what I've seen, and then, of course, what we were informed of this winter. There are a few places, it's a combination of a straightaway going into a curve. It seems like when you get in the areas where the curves are constant, people kind of expect them. Feet down the hill, they might be going a little too fast. Stating the obvious. There's danger on every curve, I think, but as far as doing what we can to stop that, like I said, even with posted speed limits, they're always gonna go faster. I've encountered people doing the 40 miles an hour while I'm out plowing snow.
Sure.
Okay, it's pretty fascinating. I find it fascinating, once my heart gets back to normal rate. But, yeah, I think whatever we do, there's always gonna be the challenge of trying to get people to do the right thing. And the question
So we've got at least two classes of drivers. We've got those that are gonna drive absolutely as fast as they can get away with. And then we got another class of people that's much more law abiding. And those people are gonna expect us to work really hard to slow down that first class.
Well, the other people I encountered a tourist this winter trying to make the left-hand corner up at Royal, where El Camino becomes Royal, in a two-wheel drive sedan. And momentum was the only way they were making it up that hill. They did not have enough traction to, at the time, continue it. So, those are the ones I worry the most about, the non-winter experienced drivers that are up here for a holiday weekend.
And at least a simple, if nothing else, we could probably put dangerous curve, sharp curve, on
Well, I think,
those areas for starters.
yeah, and as we improve the roads, when we get the engineers involved, it's gonna be required that we get the barriers and proper signage. If you've noticed, going up San Mateo, there's a nice guardrail on that, even though it's not a curve, just based on the grade on one side.
That's what determines it.
In the short term, though, in public safety and quite frankly, Kurt and his road crew, when they're out working, I think I'd like to get some public input on this, but at the very least, I would ask the police department to make a valid effort to have a presence. And maybe, again, we don't want we can't do any kind of quotas or anything like that, but we just need to let it be known that the Ankle Fire Police Department takes safety and speed limits serious. Obviously, you give them a good little cushion when you pull them over sometimes, depending on. No, I think that's fair. Again, we just wanna, encourage people to slow down for a number of reasons. So if it's a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, I personally would be guilty of speeding most of the time at 15.
Exactly.
I do try to hold it to 25, but sometimes I'm just not paying attention and I look down and I'm going faster than I should be. But for a number of reasons, I think it's worth looking at.
Well, to answer your question more thoroughly about if there's areas that can be identified where measures can be taken, absolutely, guardrail may not be the answer in all cases, but to use an example, I think one of the best examples of there is something that I see would be easy to do is, and it's a very common area for people unfamiliar with the road to go off the road, is the south end of Villa Del Rey, where it comes out right next to Monte Verde Lake. Coming down either from Villa Del Rey and Cimarron Trail come together, nice flat road, and it starts on a steady grade and goes down to a 90-degree intersection. And I think that's a good example of where signage could go a long way, even to the point of being redundant. Very icy, slow down now. Because it has to be literally one of the first focal points that we have to go put cinders on.
We do have a few of those. And the one I'm familiar with has never been victim, but close, is Peralta in Sacramento.
Absolutely.
Is another one.
The best way to fix the intersection of Peralta and Sacramento is make sure that everybody is aware that when there's snow on the ground, don't try to make that curve pulling a gooseneck trailer.
At any speed.
At some point, simple logic needs to apply, and we need to inform people of the community, understanding that it's not just the people coming here from another area with insufficient vehicles and insufficient driving experience in the mountains. There's a pretty legitimate number of full-time residents here that are very ill prepared for living in an alpine environment.
I wreck a truck or trailer every winter, just one way or another.
So I agree, this would be a great topic for a public meeting and public input. Either to get the public behind us or find out they're not there.
Well, and if nothing else, to just ask them to slow down.
Well, and I think having, you know, Kurt there to explain the washboard creation and all of that, but, I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but until we actually get a season or two of Kurt being able to do what he wants to do on the roads, I think most of the public's gonna be looking for road improvement before new speed limits, but.
I would like to mention, I don't know if any of y'all have had the opportunity to go to Telluride, Colorado. It's 15-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout the village. There's no street lights. I've never been in a traffic jam there, and I never had to wait at an intersection very long. Everybody just slows down. There's always an opening to get in, always a way to get out, and, yeah. Just thought I'd mention that.
Appreciate that. Lieutenant, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So as far as, safety issues, most of our problems are during, the heavy season, so all our visitors, they don't listen to any of the signage.
Well, you're referring to the winter months.
Correct, winter and summer, like your heavy summer holidays. I do have officers out, patrolling roads, but, you know, 434 is really busy, and so we have that one to look at, and then there's just a lot of roads for us to look at. I mean, we can focus on El Camino, we can focus on some of the other main thoroughfares, but all the other ones.
Well, and I certainly don't expect you to be everywhere. I mean,
Right,
I think, what I'm alluding to is just, and I'm not casting any, but I personally don't feel like I'm at any risk of getting a speeding ticket off 434.
on 434.
Off 434. And I would say that that's the general, consensus in the community, that risk is very low.
Right.
I have to slow down. I see them patrolling all the time. I'm like, well, I'm not speeding, let me clarify, but
I do.
just make sure I'm not
I'm not saying
speeding.
you're not, and maybe because, and I understand that the number of officers, so the number of miles of road that we have to contend with. But I've seen it, we know, we've seen it in the past when there's been a push, you know, Ute Valley Drive, you can hit 70 coming down that.
That's fast.
It's crazy. And I mean, and that's not an exaggeration. When it's straight and downhill and dry conditions, I've seen it all. But I'm just saying, you know, when an officer's encountered and you see those kind of egregious.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, word gets out, word travels. I'm not.
Well, another problem is our citation, fines.
Yeah,
Very low.
well, trust me, I know everybody makes a big deal about their tickets to the wedding platform. I think it's just a great paid parking opportunity. $25?
Yeah, very much.
Well, the one that got
Mickey
me,
charges more than that.
if I recall, passing a school bus with its flashers on is only $150 fine.
So
It's,
I will say, we're gonna be looking at all of our, this doesn't relate to this government, but in the spirit of that, we're looking at our building, application permit fees, as well as the process, but I think we should look at, and again, I'm not trying to.
well, I think they should definitely, I mean, in light of, they haven't been changed in forever.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people just, I mean, it's, you're 10 over, it's 59 over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
What happens if you're 50 over?
50 over?
Go to jail?
We actually don't have anything in there for that, unfortunately. I mean, if I can get you on reckless, which would require 2, so speeding and let's say weaving or something like that, then yeah, I could.
No, I'd be curious.
But yeah, no.
It'd be interesting to see too, amongst others, have a competition to see if you get the biggest overage.
Incentive.
I wish we could.
I don't like those.
No, I'm saying, not ticket quotas.
Oh, not to.
Who can get the guy going 75 and 25?
Oh, I see the highs.
Who has the radar gun
The
of the month?
biggest offender.
On most roads, I haven't had an issue unless there was winter, like driving 25 it seems to be safe. The winter months are when there's issues, and, my wife was hit in January from a clown that was going too fast and went over the line and into her car. So, I know he was going over the speed limit. The hard thing is proving it. So even if it's 15, for me to prove it on an accident or something else, it's something else. So, it comes strictly really to enforcement. So if we're out there, and if we're actually sticklers on 25 and the word gets out, then that, I think, would do the job.
I have to agree, and again, I think at a 15, quite frankly, at a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, we'll be lucky to slow them down to 25. I really do.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm not saying there's areas that it's not, but sometimes it's hard to go 15 miles an hour.
Sure. On your main thoroughfares, I think 25 is fine, like on your egress and entries. But yeah, it's not some of the really rural, like the really hard to get places. I mean, yeah, speed limit's at 15, I could see, but.
Sure.
Yeah, just
I do think it makes
leave it up to the
sense
public. See
to
what
have a speed limit that is the same throughout, so we don't have different areas with different signage,
Mhm.
different, possibly have at our main entrances, our entrances into any subdivision, any offshoot, have posted possibly with flag signs showing the speed limit, that it's on village roads unless otherwise posted, I don't know. These are all conversations to have to just get people to slow down for a number of reasons. And so how we best do that?
All I can do is say, for the most part, 25 seems okay. But that, again, on like, an actual road survey to figure out if there is line of sight issues or something like that, it's out of my hands. All I can say is 25 seems to be safe, and, I can try and make sure that we don't get calls on it. If we get calls, then we can target that area, right? So, if we're getting calls on speeders on such and such roadway, I've had officers go and sit on that roadway. But it's just not a pervasive issue. It's usually one clown that's racing through there, and then I have an officer sitting there for 4 or 5 hours waiting to see if someone's gonna speed down that roadway. But yeah,
Understand.
open to discussion.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
The roads that were paved over by Olympic Park, San Mateo, and the lower part of Spyglass Hill, paved, smooth, safe, good exposure to the sun, great line of sight, 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'm curious how that was determined. Is it to preserve the pavement? Was it to accommodate the residents in the area? Just
So I
curious if anybody.
know two of those areas. One is the one you just referred to, and the other is at the bottom of El Camino Real, Vale.
Where the new pavement was put, yeah.
But I want to say that those speed limits were that prior to the new pavement.
Don't believe it was on San Mateo.
And actually, Mrs. Boyd could speak to that.
San Mateo
Has
in
always
front of
been.
the townhouses has been 15 miles an hour as long as I've lived there, and that's 20 years.
Okay. I wonder though what.
The
Nobody,
population, it might be,
That and
The intersection,
playground.
well, the intersection below.
Playground would be a
and
dollar.
then because there was the stop sign at the bottom of San Mateo and Spyglass went through.
Prior, she's right.
Now it's no stop sign on San Mateo, and Spyglass is supposed to stop. But
Supposed to.
I've clocked people going 60 miles
Well,
an
and so
hour.
I was gonna say, that's another, that stretch of road is another Valley of the Utes, like you said. because it's straight, but downhill,
Right.
great line of sight, it's real easy to let your speed get away from you there. So I don't have any idea why, those are the only two areas that I know of. But again, and enforce 25 everywhere, because again, the 15, does it make a difference? Quite frankly.
Nobody goes 15, so.
And I have seen officers posted up there.
Well, when before it was paved, I did call a couple of times, and they'd be up on whatever the other road is, and check people. But, you know,
And the dust was a huge, I mean, again, 60 miles an hour on a dirt road is an enormous amount of dust. There's a lot of factors, but yeah, to your point, Kurt, I'm not sure why.
Well, and you know, I do want to add from my prior experience in owning trucks that there were many times where even at 25 miles an hour, reports were called in that we were going too fast. Because 25 miles an hour in a fully loaded dump truck is, again, too fast for Camino Real. But the perception is that it's going a whole lot faster. So same goes for pickups pulling equipment on gooseneck trailers, 25 miles an hour. It appears like, it looks like they're going 40.
I appreciate it, thank you. Anybody have anything to add to that topic? If not, we'll move on to our final item today, the discussion of parking and activities at Balloons over Angel Fire.
So we're planning on having a cat festival at the softball fields. The tourism director, Greg, is gonna be hosting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What festival?
Kite flying. So glad Scott's here too, because is the airport gonna be closed all day for the balloons?
We can close it for the entire day or just for the duration of the activities.
The only thing that complicated is during the kite festival, if the airport's open, we can only fly up to 150 feet. But 500, we'll scratch that one. But all we wanna do is, we're gonna wanna rope off that east area along the fence where the softball fields are, so that they can fly.
Airport?
No, at the softball fields.
Okay, the kite, it's gonna be at
The
the,
soccer
especially
fields.
at the softball fields.
And then, but the request is there's some sagebrush. It looks like there's more parking as you go west where the parking is on the north side of the fields. And we just wanna mow that down and then mow some more of the sage down on the east side. I know Kurt and they were way busy, so I mean, if
This is to accommodate parking? Is this for the whole event or just the kite festival?
well, I would imagine because there's always congestion at the airport, that the idea would be to have overflow parking at the softball fields, because there's a lot of area, and it's a great place to view it. And, you know, we'll have vendors there, restrooms, so that may morph into more, yeah.
It's those little things like that that go such a long way.
Yeah, so just, you know, planning to get more parking there. I think the gravel's already down. You can see where rocks extend out, but just a matter of mowing.
I think
a
it's
little
wood
bit.
chips.
Yeah, I think it's wood chips too.
There is wood chips, but where there's growth, weeds and stuff, there's rocks where you can tell the parking does go out farther to the,
So you're just
West.
proposing, well, and we can ask Kurt,
because I do have a bush hog and I do allow my tractors right across the street.
how something like that would be best performed.
Yeah, actually, the maintenance department can take care of that. They take care of fallow fields, weed removal, so forth
I
and so
saw them
on.
on the trails by the beaver pond today.
They've been doing a great job lately, by the way, Kurt.
The
They have-
sidewalks
tell
are
them we
nice and
noticed.
clean.
Yeah,
And I
so,
saw them on the trail.
just so you know, and I may not be the time to say it, but to just let everybody know, their small sweeper is coming back from repairs from Colorado today, so we're gonna start cleaning gutters out. But yes, it's absolutely something we can handle and take care of, as long as there's no sacred ceremonial sagebrush out there that we're forbidden to cut down. We'll take a look at it, we can figure it out.
Do we know our boundaries on that property? Do we have a
we do.
plat?
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, I just wanna make sure we're not cutting someone else's sagebrush down.
Yeah, well, and there's there's actually rocks there that were put for, it was parking, it's just half of the parking is overgrown.
Talking about the north side?
Uh-huh, yeah. Yeah, cause I think we're gonna need, cause we're gonna rope off the east side for kites. So the parking is gonna get
So
smaller.
it won't be on the field.
The
Both.
pipeline?
Yeah, I think there's gonna need to be both probably, to use that north, yeah.
The other thing, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Epler, is we may want to look at putting some additional wood chips out there. I mean, we don't want to make it too thick, but some spots, the mud's already starting to come up through those wood chips that are out there in the parking lot.
Yeah, wood chips do a very good job of retaining moisture
Yeah, I know.
and maintaining mud.
We don't have anything else.
There we go. Maybe we should look at that,
My proposal,
but like sooner than later.
we do have a pile of material, we call it dirty millings, where asphalt has been milled up, but a lot of base course is mixed in with it as well. That, we might be able to utilize some of that over there.
And if I may, I know you're not a huge fan of the asphalt millings from the state. And I'm not sure how that works. I understand that they can't be purchased by private entities, but government entities can purchase those millings. You know, the
They're
reg-
usually given to you.
so if
They're
they're,
allotted to you.
if they're given, would that be something in lieu of wood chips?
I think,
You would
I think
consider?
millings work great in a parking lot,
The
especially
parking
one that's doesn't get a tremendous amount of usage. It's actually stood up pretty well in the parking lots at the resort
lot? There's got
house.
a lot of usage, a lot
A
of
lot
plowing.
of
These
usage.
don't even get plowed.
I'm by no means a fan of millings on roads that are driven regularly, but absolutely.
So is that something that we should look at for Allen Fields in general, especially with this event? And
Could we have to apply to NMDOT to get access to the millings that they have? And usually you have to haul them yourself.
Which we can do, and I believe they ask you to load yourself also. I know you're only able to get a certain amount at a time,
Right.
but it's very doable, so.
what would, and I can't imagine holding you this number, but what would you anticipate tonnage yardage being out there?
It's been a while since
And
I've
there's
been
not,
out there.
there's not really a base either,
Footprint,
so.
I guess, 100 by 200,
Yeah,
300 tons.
for that north facing parking.
And would that be a good use of, in other words, without any kind of base, we need to get the wood chips out?
Yeah.
What's under the wood chips, do we know?
Where the parking area is, I don't think it's really full of wood chips that much.
Well, I think they've been decayed.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
They just
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
It was.
I know that, I know
put
that,
like 5 inches
that east
down
side has got a ton of.
about 10 years ago.
But it's organic
Maybe not even-
material.
Let me have a look at it and see what we have for subgrade essentially. is what you're
I would
asking.
hate to bring in more wood chips, quite frankly, because it is I get it, it's better than mud, but it ultimately creates mud,
But, yeah,
turns to mud.
whether it's
Yes.
millings or clean gravel, you put it on top of mud, you're just gonna have more.
And it looks like there is a base already there.
But if people like-
But if.
I thought there was a base of pit run
Yeah.
out there for
I
subgrade.
don't think so.
A good use of millings, I'd say we do whatever we can to get our hands on them.
Shay would know, but I don't remember there ever being pit run out there.
It's been there a while now. I just don't know either. Anything we should add to that? I think that's wonderful to have a simple little kite festival. Because as we all know, when the balloons are here, the wind blows. And even on a calm day, it blows out the field, so.
Well, you're either gonna get a great balloon festival or a great kite festival.
No, I appreciate everyone for, attending. This planning session is adjourned. Hope you'll all join us 5:30 for a regular council meeting.